Hockey Podcast. Hey, did you know that we have a podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oddly enough, we're just talking into mics talking about movies, but we also have a podcast.
Yeah, we do produce this occasionally.
Yeah. Oh man, we're producers. Welcome to the Handsome Hockey Podcast, everybody. I am Jake. We're sitting here once more at the house of Evan. And speaking of Evan, he's across the table from me.
Hey, this is episode 23. It's our Michael Jordan episode.
Yeah.
So we have to say, and I took that personally.
Ooh, that's the game.
What?
Full stop. That's the game.
Just Michael Jordan?
How we can fit, and I took that personally, into the yes.
Or just weird Jordanisms?
Yes.
All right.
All right. That's fun. Okay. So it is the 15th of March today. We are recording a little bit late. Evan decided to have fun this weekend.
I had one fun.
Yeah. He was allotted one fun and he took it. And I'm very proud of him.
I milked that.
We were talking last night. We had a script and we were both looking it over and saying, wow, this kind of sucks.
Nothing happened in hockey this week.
This is fucking
boring. Did hockey even happen?
So we don't have a whole lot to talk about today, but we found some nuggets of joy that we're gonna bring to you. And I think the first nugget of joy we're gonna talk about, and it's always a nugget of joy, is the NWHL playoffs. The Isobel Cup is coming back not this weekend, but next weekend. And we'll do a little bit more of an in-depth preview next week. But we just want to say that we're thrilled. Like this it's such an awesome feeling to have what couldn't be finished be finished. And so also, I'm thrilled because the Whale are back, but we got to see the first, I don't know, probably 30-ish games of the NWHL season when they were in the Wubble at Lake Placid. 30 is probably a bit, that's probably pretty close. That's probably pretty close.
Mental calculation skills, not exactly with me right now. But
it's late. It's 8:12 p.m. And I'm old and I'm still young and spry. So we got to see some really good hockey. And then they shut it down and we were all like, oh no, what are we going to do about women's hockey?
You could say that they put it on ice.
So the NWHL ended their season because of COVID. And then the PWHPA came back and they played a series of games in Madison Square Garden, the United Center, another game in Chicago that were a ton of fun. So much skill that was on display in these games. There was a ton of Olympians, all Americans or mostly Americans. Abby Rock, who is apparently going to be the best player in the world. And sure enough, she's amazing.
Countercoin Schofield looked amazing as always.
Brianna Decker.
And so it was a lot of fun. And I don't know, I kind of come away from this all thinking if the NWHL can finish up as scheduled, this end up being a plus situation even past what they had planned. Like I feel like the PWHPA games and the NWHL games have been kind of spaced in a way that just keeps people's interest in women's hockey. And, you know, I think how NBC and NBC Sports are kind of structuring, showing them in larger TV markets, it seems like the sky's the limit now for where they can take this.
I completely agree. And I think that we're really starting to see the first big buzz about women's hockey, probably since the gold medal game in the last Winter Olympics, I would say.
Because those two teams do not like each other.
And they're light years ahead of every other team in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
You can only watch us murder South Korea 9-0 so many times.
And the South Koreans are going to take it personally. That's one. But the South Koreans might take it personally, but they don't have anything to do against the juggernauts that are the US or Canada, as do most teams in the world. So we talked about this. This might be in one of the forbidden episodes, but the US and Canada are light years ahead of everybody. But there are other good teams. Like there are other good teams in Sweden or in Europe that are, you know, slowly but surely kind of building up their women's programs. The U.S. is obviously always so good at women's sports. We're way better at women's sports than we are men's sports.
You know, we saw some drama with the NWHL, and there's some limited tension between them and the PWHPA just because they're two roster pools that ne'er the two shall meet, at least currently structured. But the ancillary drama, you know, between the NWHL and Barstool, or between the NWHL's bubble falling apart and the political intrigue. It just made it that much more interesting to me. The NHL could use some teams just randomly pulling out for COVID reasons, like New Jersey and Buffalo.
I think Buffalo already just kind of ended their season, but they show up. And
yeah, I think I just figured it out. I think Taylor Hall is actually paying a really accurate body double. He's just not quite as good at hockey.
That's good for Taylor Hall, because then he's not the guy who tripped over the blue line a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's just Taylor Hall by proxy. But if the Predators just sort of stopped playing, would anyone notice?
If a tree falls in the woods.
The Socratic question is interview Ryan Johansson did the other day, where he was just absolutely not having fun. He was just like, they asked him like softball question, like, what can your team do? And he's like, score 5 goals in the third.
You play hockey for a life. Right. That's how you're making a very substantial living, especially Ryan Johansson. How are you not having fun? I don't care how much you're losing. You're making millions of dollars to play the game that we started playing when we were 4.
I mean, I think professionals take it seriously, and they know that their jobs are on the line if they don't win. So
you take it seriously, absolutely. But don't you wake up every day and go, oh yeah, I'm a professional hockey player?
No, you lose and you say, I took that personally. It's one thing when you sort of see like the affable hockey script lingo trotted out after a game. You know, oh, we didn't get 4 lines deep and we didn't roll for 60 minutes. And yeah, we couldn't get pucks deep and, we really struggled. And it's another thing when a player is just publicly like, fuck this. This sucks. Kyle Okposo said something in the media this week. It's not easy right now. It's not easy. This is not an easy situation. Guys care. It's just not happening right now. I don't know how else to put it. It's tough. We're in a really tough spot here. Guys are trying and it's just not working. I don't know what else to say. I think that speaks to how professional athletes do approach what is fundamentally their jobs.
Kyle Okposo 2021 is Erik Karlsson 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Kyle Okposo can ever do as much damage as Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson also complaining in the media about how his team is bad.
I do want to get back to women's hockey, but I'll just say this quick about Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson said that he didn't sign with the Sharks to go through a rebuild. Understandable. When he signed with the Sharks, they were good. One of the reasons they're bad is because he's taking up 14.1% of their cap, and they can't afford other players who could supplement the relatively okay core that they have.
Dear Erik Karlsson, you are why we can't have nice things. Sincerely, the San Jose Sharks.
Dear Erik Karlsson, fuck you. Take less money then. If winning is that important to you, you take less money so the team can build around you, as opposed to taking up almost 15% of your team's entire cap hit.
But nobody in the NHL does the Tom Brady, do they? I mean, nobody's like restructuring their contract as a star player so they can add people.
Have you seen the first line in Boston?
Have they restructured?
They didn't have to. They all took less money so they could continue to be good every single year.
Right. Yes, two different things.
And Tom Brady was also making like $150 million on endorsements every year. He didn't need his football money also. Yeah,
he had his wacky pseudo-health money.
Yeah, his pseudo-health, Donald Trump loving, MAGA hat wearing. I wanna like Tom Brady so much because he's a Wolverine, but
he's one of those guys like hard to believe that he would still be on the MAGA train, but I don't know.
The fact that he was on it to begin with is kind of disappointing, but I digress. We've digressed. What we really want to say is the NWHL is coming back and you should watch it. It's going to be awesome. It should be the, I believe, 26th and 27th of March.
I think that's right.
Yeah, March. Okay. Yeah, I was right. March 26th and March 27th. And we're thrilled. The first round will be the Toronto Six, who in their inaugural season finished first in the round robin that was the quote-unquote regular season of the NWHL. They will take on perennial favorites, the Boston Pride, in the first round, while the Minnesota Whitecaps will take on the Connecticut Whale.
Which those are the teams that we were each rooting for, so we get to have a little bit of a grudge match to start.
Yeah, we're definitely watching that game together. So anyways, we are really thrilled to see that these games will be live on NBCSN. They'll be streaming on NBCsports.com, the NBC Sports app, and they will be on Twitch if you are an international viewer. So all our friends in what was it? Sweden, the Philippines, Turkey, New Zealand, and there was one other international country other country.
Definitely not Canada.
We have no listeners in Canada as of yet, but we have them in like the Philippines.
I will send our first Canadian listeners some poutine, personally.
I will deliver it. I just it'll be in quarantine for 2 weeks, but I will deliver that poutine.
It may be slightly cold.
We're thrilled to watch these games in a couple of weeks here. It's going to be a fun weekend of women's hockey. It will be really just it'll be great to watch somebody hoist the cup for the first time in 2 years. And, watch it. We got the fun stuff out of the way first, I think. No, there will be some other fun stuff later, but
hit you with the good news. Now the bad news.
Yeah, it's as if our listeners were given the choice of, do you want the good news or the bad news? And they were like, give me the good news. And we were like, okay, but just so you know, there's some bad news. So this is the golden anniversary. Not the golden. It's the anniversary of Bobby Hull scoring his 50th goal. And there's been media, there's been stories coming out. It's what, the 55th anniversary, I believe, of Do Math.
Something like that.
Do Math, 55.
Go Gaff.
Yeah, of
Math Gadget.
Yes, of his first 50 goal season in the NHL. And
which put him over the hump to be, at that time, the single season scoring champion.
Well, in any case, happy anniversary, Bobby Hull. You fucking Nazi-loving, racist, domestic abusing scumfuck.
Yeah, so this came to pass because my mom, first of all, she was the genesis of the Fred Saskamoose tribute we did last week, which is a super interesting story about a great, nice person that we like telling. This week, she texts me or emails me, a This Week in Illinois History put on by our local Northern Public radio station. And March 12th, 1966, Bobby Hull scores his 50th goal. And I took that opportunity to be like, well, Mom, about Bobby Hull. He's not exactly someone we're a fan of. And yes, he is still alive. No, he's not really making public appearances anymore. But he has said some questionable shit, and most heinously is a serial domestic abuser. There's a preponderance of evidence and accusations. And his daughter said that she got into victim crisis counseling specifically because of him. Not someone that we are a huge fan of, but you can't really talk about the game of hockey and its growth and development and where it is today without talking about Bobby Hull. He literally has a rule named after him in that you cannot any longer have a banana curve stick with 1.5 inches of curve. You're limited to a 1/2 inch.
Speaking of banana curves,
yeah,
if he were a 21st century personality, he would have had banana clips in the guns that he chased his family around the house with.
So that was actually a thing.
Yes.
He chased a family around the house with gun.
With loaded shotguns. So Bobby Hull is one of in every sport, especially in the United States, but probably worldwide, has problematic figures, right? Especially in the United States, we have problematic people throughout our history. Like, oh, hey, George Washington, father of our country, also a slaveholder, that sort of thing.
Right.
Bobby Hull is kind of that same ilk. Like,
you can't talk about hockey without talking about him, but yeah, he had a lot of problems.
He's one of the NHL's... So the NHL says 100 greatest players of all time, but at the same time, he's a fucking demonstrative piece of shit. Like, and one of the ways we've been trying to highlight these people is by making sure that the voice of the voiceless is heard.
Do you want to do the timeline?
Yeah, let's just do a brief rundown of the life of Bobby Hull. So let's skip all the things about him being good at hockey and just go right to 1970, where his wife, Joanne McKay, threatens to get divorced. Later, they reconcile. Then throughout the 70s, he proceeds to, on several occasions, beat the ever-living shit out of his wife. He beat her with a steel-heeled shoe, chased her around the house with a loaded shotgun, and held her over a balcony perilously close to killing her. The quote from Joanne was, "He threw me in a room and just proceeded to knock the heck out of me. He took my shoe with a steel heel and proceeded to hit me in the head. I was covered with blood. And I can remember him holding me over the balcony, and I thought, this is the end. I'm going. What a fucking gentleman, this Bobby Hull.
Yeah, it was really hard to hear that.
In 1980, Joanne McKay finally divorces him, and as her reason for divorcing him, she names a pattern of abuse, severe abuse. In 1984, he's inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame. In 1986, Hull is arrested. He's arrested only for taking a swing at a police officer who arrived at the scene, not for beating the shit out of his wife while sitting in a parked car in the parking lot of their condo.
This is a new wife.
Yes, this is a new wife. Hull was arrested for taking a swing at the officer. That police officer said that there was evidence that he had struck his wife because there was bruising and swelling in her face.
Jeez.
That wife would later drop any charges against him. We don't have any documented malfeasance in the waning 12 years, but you can just kind of imagine what kind of shit was going on this entire time. Mm-hmm. In 1998, in a Moscow newspaper...
It's Moscow Today.
Yeah. Bobby Hull announced that he was pro-Hitler and said that he had a lot of great ideas. He just, quote, and I quote, he just took them a little too far. The genocide of 9 million people. Just a little too far.
Over the top.
Just a little too far. If he had only done 6 million, maybe 7.5, we could have lived with that.
He also said that black people in the U.S. had too much power and were growing too rapidly, and that the Canadian government was too left-wing and had too many undeserving people on welfare. Now, he did almost immediately after the fact disavow those comments in the Moscow paper, which, in light of more recent events such as Artemy Panarin's accusations, it gains a little bit more weight. But even if he didn't say that, it doesn't take away any of the spousal abuse. So, it's sort of just icing on the cake, is it not?
It's I'm just gonna say I'm gonna believe the Moscow Today.
There's a reason that he is only trotted out every so often, but it's also a shame to the Blackhawks, that he is one of their problems. They have several, but...
Speaking of the Chicago hockey team,
yeah,
in 2007, he was named an official ambassador of the Chicago racist mascots.
Not only that, they built a statue of him.
Detroit, stadium named after a famous black boxer. Chicago Hockey Club, racist statue.
Yeah, playing in the building that Michael Jordan built.
And you know what Michael Jordan did? He took that personally. 2-1. This, I think, for us is what we would like to call, and maybe we'll make this a segment, I don't know, but this is a Mary fuck you to Bobby Hull, disgraced former NHLer. I hope that the rest of his life is miserable and that he's sad and that Brett doesn't ever visit.
Yeah, I mean, Brett Hull may be one of the best things that Bobby ever did. And his daughter seems like an amazing person. She's a lawyer, very concerned with victims' rights.
Specifically victims of domestic abuse and domestic violence. And in interviews, she said, oh, yes, I'm absolutely a lawyer fighting for the rights of those who've been domestically assaulted because of my dad.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think Brett in the media has said very glowing things about him either. I think maybe Brett's revenge on his dad was beating all of his records by a country mile.
Yeah, being a better hockey player than his bumfuck dad was probably just like a good stick up the ass. So good.
Yeah, I mean, people will say he's a man of his time, blah, blah, blah. But there were plenty of men in that area that didn't beat their wives and didn't beat their families.
And didn't support the fucking Nazis. I figure it still blows my mind that we have this one obvious, very apex evil in the history of humanity. We're like, okay, the Nazis were the worst fucking thing ever. Mm-hmm. And there are people who are like, nah, I want some of that.
Well, and not only that, we ignore that the Koch brothers' dad built oil refineries for the Nazis. The IBM company actually sold the Nazis technology that allowed them to make the Holocaust more efficient.
I wore a pair of Adidas's over here
Right. Well, there's almost, that's different, actually. In my mind, those were captive industry. What separates Hugo Boss is they leaned into designing the uniforms and like were all about it. Like VW, they didn't have...
VW was created off of a personal edict of Hitler.
Right.
The Dassler brothers, Adi Dassler, who created Adidas, and Rudolf Dassler, who created Puma, were both in the SS. Probably of their own volition, the records show. I will give Hugo Boss, the company, a lot of credit that if you go to their website, they did this huge research project on Hugo Boss.
Oh, yeah?
That was not in any way tied to the Hugo Boss company. And so they have this huge litany of the things that he did. And they are like, these are the things that have happened that our founder did. And we do not agree with as a company.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know
They're
that.
one of the few companies that do that. Like, Coco Chanel was a fucking Nazi spy. IBM, you mentioned. Henry Ford was an inspiration to the Nazis.
And Henry Ford also published a printing of the Chronicles of Elders of Zion, which is the anti-Jewish... It was a fake account of a meeting of Jews, and it was originally published by the Russian government, or Russians, I believe.
Yeah, I mean...
But... yeah, Henry Ford choose to fucking print it here.
Well, he had the assembly line, so, you just got to slap some glue in a binding and stuff some pages in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take a break from making that Model T there, buddy. Here, let's make some anti-Semitic propaganda.
One of the great ironies of Henry Ford is that all of his plants got turned into bomber plants. And what did those bombers do? Flatten fucking Germany.
Yeah.
Here's a B-17 up your ass every 12 minutes.
So yeah, Bobby Hull, critical to the tale of the growing of the game of hockey.
He's not critical to the game going forward.
No, and one of those people that we really should be honest about, because you can't not talk about him, and so you got to tell the whole story. It's all sort of a piece of the same story. It's sports' relationship to power, and how it continues to intertwine itself is of continued interest to me. I mean, whether it's stadium deals or
men
political
dominion over women in the sport.
Yeah, trans rights in the sport. I got into a big fight this week about trans rights and stuff on Facebook, and people that I was friends with on Facebook are like playing hockey. Posted something about a trans weightlifter that broke the women's world record on weightlifting, and how that was awful. And I was one of a couple of people chimed in just saying, yeah, no, that it's not. I'm not offering any solutions as a straight white male that doesn't really have a lot of room to speak on the subject.
But that's kind of what we have postulated several times in the past. Like, we realize that we are coming from places of influence and privilege. And instead of sitting silently and enjoying that privilege and the things that it has brought us, we love the game of hockey, but would love to see a more diverse and inclusive sport of hockey. Since we sit in this place of privilege, we can use that privilege to affect that change. And so if people are out there listening and you're hearing us and you're saying, you know what, fuck yeah, this is what I believe as well, then you're the people that we want recruited amongst us. Like, we're trying to just...
Even if you're just open to, changing your opinions too. I mean, you don't go from 0 to 100 in terms of social consciousness without taking a leap of faith and kind of being rewarded for it. So we hope to be, maybe provide people with new information and new ways to look at things.
Here's a true story. So I used to play in the Portland Ball Hockey League, which is fucking awesome. If you're in the Portland metro area and you love hockey, you should play in PDX Ball Hockey. It's so much fun. Saturday mornings, Alberta Park, Northeast Portland. What I will say is every year there's at least one, sometimes 2 or 3 female players in the league. And one year I got knocked down by a female player in the league. And a bunch of people, as bros will do, were like, oh, you got knocked down by the girl. And I was like, she's a better hockey player than I am.
Yeah.
I am not good. She's very good. she should knock me down. The laws of hockey say that she is better than me, therefore she should knock me down. And like that's kind of a carry-on thing here, right? Respect good hockey players and raise the voices of those who oftentimes are left with less of a voice. And so that's why we talk about the NWHL. That's why we're going to talk about Larry Kwong here in a minute. When people are misogynistic, bigoted, racist, homophobic, transphobic, I take that personally. And 3-1. But we have this platform where we can say enough is enough. Mm-hmm. And so if you're still around and listening, that's fucking awesome. We're thrilled to have you. That's what I'll say. That's how I'll stop talking about Nazis for the day.
Oh, they'll come back.
Yeah, goddamn Nazis. So I did just mention Larry Kwong, and we want to point out a extremely important milestone in the history of hockey, at least in North America. So Larry Kwong is largely regarded as the first non-white player and also the first player of Asian descent to play in the NHL. Larry Kwong made his debut on March 13th, 1948 for the New York Rangers against the Montreal Canadiens, who at the time featured Maurice Richard, one of the best players of all time.
The Rocket himself.
This was less than a year after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball, which is actually really intriguing to see that, the NHL, which is to this day still an extremely white league for an extremely white sport, that the NHL broke the color barrier relatively early. Sadly, Larry Kwong's NHL career was not very long. He played one shift in the third period of a game. That wasn't because of a lack of talent. It was because of a lack of opportunity. That barrier was broken, and that was amazing. But Kwong realized that he wasn't going to get much of a chance playing in the New York Rangers organization. And so Kwong then signed a lucrative contract with the Quebec Senior Hockey League for the Valleyfield Braves, who at that time were coached by legendary NHL coach Toe Blake. He would end up playing against many future NHL All-Stars, but he was an All-Star in his own right. He was named an alternate captain of the Valleyfield Braves, and actually won the, I'm going to say Vimy Trophy as the league MVP in 1951. So like this guy was very good at hockey. He then took his playing days to England, where he actually ended up meeting his first wife and getting married. He then moved to Switzerland, and it was in Switzerland that he became the first person of Chinese descent to coach a professional hockey team anywhere.
Amazing.
Think of a life well lived. Like this dude is incredible. Larry Kwong, eventually he returned to Canada after retiring from hockey, settling in Calgary, and much like his father, he actually owned and operated a grocery store in Calgary. He lived until the age of 94 years old. He passed away 3 years ago to this day. We are recording on Monday, March 15th. He passed away 3 years ago to this day on March 15th, 2018. Give a shout out to Larry Kwong. We've been talking about players who have broken all of these barriers in the NHL, but let's give a shout out to the guy who broke the original color barrier in the NHL, Larry Kwong. I'm going to have to look up and see if there's a book about his life, because what a wild story. I would read that in like 2 days. And
if there isn't, there probably should be. So, you know who made a story happier this week?
He wrote a sad song and then he made it better.
Yeah, that famous song by Alex Galchenyuk.
Nice.
Alex Galchenyuk, who is veteran of many trades and air miles at this point in his career, turned fourth line minutes in Toronto now into a Gordie Howe hat trick. The first one that we have seen in many, many, many years, with a goal, assist, and a fight. Gordie Howe hat trick is just the guy who's having the most fun on ice, basically.
It's the Gordie Howe hat trick, and then as a subcategory, it's the Tkachuk brothers.
Yeah, like a Gordie Howe hat trick is like next to natural hat trick in terms of most impressive feats possible to do in a hockey game.
I think I've probably only got 2 or 3 of those in my life. And,
we don't fight. You know, we're not supposed to fight.
We're not supposed to.
Except for your first night. You have to fight.
Fight Club has come up so many times lately. And
Yeah, it's because we're millennial males.
I feel like I have to watch it again. I'm really worried that it won't hold up, and that'll be sad for my youth.
I think I've watched it after the aura of it had worn off, you know? I think it holds up pretty well. Chuck Palahniuk's writing, maybe not so much, but I think the movie does.
I could go back and reread that book as well, although somebody stole my copy of it at some point. I think
really, really excited to read Fight Club.
the book is, and no disrespect to Chuck Palahniuk as an author, I actually met him once, and
He's just a weirdo.
He's actually really incredibly friendly. Like,
I've heard that too.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I've been a big fan for a long time. He's like, really? That's so nice of you. I was like, wait, what? I was just like really taken aback. I think I have all of his books still like at my parents' house. And so if I'm ever allowed to go back to Michigan because of COVID, maybe I'll just pick up a couple of his books. If I remember correctly, Survivor and Choke are both really good.
Yeah, Choke is cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of Choke, the Oilers swept the Sens after they've been in the sort of thorn in the side of the whole North Division. But the Sens are beating everybody else, and Toronto is lost a bad one. A, are the Oilers for real? And B, Toronto is like flavor of the week.
Every other week. Everybody's like, Toronto's the best team in the league. Oh, they're not very good, but they're the best team in the league. Oh, they're not really very good. Oh my God, they're the best team.
I think this is the backstretch of the COVID season is just further evidence of global weirding. It's just kind of wild and crazy and wacky, and we have a lot to talk about, but at the same time, not a lot to talk about. So we end up riffing a lot.
We're getting to the point where the Toronto media is just becoming the NHL media. I mean, in normal years, you hear Toronto in the background and you're like, yeah, we get it. The Maple Leafs. Yeah, cool. Okay. They have a couple of cups. Cool. That's cute. When was the last one? But this year they're like, we're the best. And you're like, no, you're in the North, and the North is sketchy at best. But we're the best in the North. Are you? We're the best in the North. Because what was it? 2-3 weeks ago where they beat the shit out of Edmonton and didn't allow Draisaitl and McDavid to have a point.
Oh, yeah.
And have the best week ever.
And they looked unbeatable doing it.
And then they played Ottawa and gave up a 5-1 lead.
I mean, that's also who Ottawa is. And also Ottawa, who surrenders their starting goaltender, who isn't very good, during warmups to an unknown upper body injury.
That was planned.
And then who start young man, whose literal French translation of his last name is okay, in goal. And he gets his first career win and chokes up in the interview. And it's the most amazingly adorable thing ever.
Charming. Well, let's talk about the North just for a little bit, because I don't want to spend too much time talking about that tire fire. But
tire fire, I love it.
I know, I love it.
It's
but
like a Jersey Shore tire fire.
It's absolutely a tire fire, though. Like, nobody is good.
Toronto is
everybody's
totally
good.
snooky.
Yeah. Ooh, she wants. What's this? Smush Smush? Was that? I will be perfectly honest. I never watched the show.
And Mike, the situation. That's the Oilers. You don't like him one moment, and then the next moment you're like, oh yeah, all right.
He's got a heart of gold.
You're an asshole to everybody. And when you do it to the people I don't like, you're funny.
I love you. Yeah. Calgary fired their coach. The Canadians fired their coach.
Imagine being a Calgary Flames fan and you have woken up from a coma and Daryl Sutter is still coach.
Yeah. 7 years later. You're like, man, they must have had a really good run, right? Oh boy, we've got some things to tell you, eh?
Yeah. Retread coaches are always good for that joke.
Grab yourself some poutine and just sit up straight in that hospital bed and let me tell you a story about the Calgary, Alberta Flames.
Maybe that'll be the first Canadian to listen to our podcast, is the person who have just...
They're going to be pissed off. They'll go back through some episodes and be like, they have really shitty Canadian accents.
This was not worth the free poutine.
Yeah, if you are our first listener in Canada, please give us a shout out on the email. It's handsomehockeypod@gmail.com. We will buy you some poutine. Fuck it. We both are like quasi successful people. No, we're not successful.
Successful enough to buy someone
We
poutine.
we got poutine money. That's what I'll say. We got poutine. We got some stimmy checks coming. We got poutine money.
Yeah, they ain't got stimmy checks coming.
They ain't got
Actually,
stimmy
no,
checks.
I think they do every month.
No, I
But,
was going to say they don't have stimmy checks because their government actually fucking cares about them. Yeah, let's keep moving.
So Connor McDavid scored a goal in 10 seconds.
What doesn't he do, though?
But that was just silly. I mean, also the goalie just completely fucked that one up. It was still just silly. It was such a low danger chance. He just chucks it in from the corner right into the net. The goalie didn't even know what hit him.
Well, that's like a third of my goals. It's just like, I hope this goes in.
Oh, shut up.
We're just kind of flying through the NHL at this point. Kirill Kaprizov had a hat trick the other day. I believe it was a natty hattie.
Natty Hattie.
A natty
in
hattie?
the third period. Like, can you have a more impactful Natty Hattie?
No.
So I have a question: is if you're tied and then you score 3 goals, which one of those counts as the game-winning goal?
All of them. You get 3 GWGs. Googs.
3 googs.
3 googs. Let's just end the Calder race now. Just give him the trophy. Just show up in
For real.
Minnesota. Just show up at the Excel Center and be like, oh, here, this is yours. And he'll be
Yeah.
like, what is this? They'll be like, oh, it's the Rookie of the Year trophy, the Calder. And he'll be like, oh, cool. Well, I'm Russian, so I don't get this. And
Yeah,
then everybody will explain it to him.
The only losers in the scenario are the sports writers that want to write about the Calder like it's a race. Like, just end it. Just move on to some other race.
Horse racing sucks, and this year's Calder race sucks.
Hey, Eddie Olchuk takes that personally.
Don't care.
Yeah, somebody could come and break his legs like he's...
We're not saying break Kirill Kaprizov's legs. He's a beautiful boy and needs to just play hockey in his unfettered, beautiful, lovely way.
I'm making a Tanya Harding joke and failing. Somebody could club his legs and he should still win the Calder. Just
Nancy
call
Kerrigan won the silver. So
it. Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is he's Oksana Bayul.
But he's amazing. That
Yeah.
question is over. We can stop thinking about that. We can
What
start.
other trophies are out there that have some mystery left?
We can actually think about the Jack Adams race if we want to. You know, like Joel Quenneville has been doing an amazing job with Florida.
I'm so tired of that fucking guy, though.
I know you probably personally are. Rod Brindamore is doing a hell of a job with Carolina.
Yeah, well, I'm so tired of Joel Quenneville, but honestly, at this point, I think it's probably him. Florida shouldn't be as good as they are.
Well,
Carolina,
yeah.
Well, Carolina's doing a lot of work without their number one goalie. They've had a lot of injuries.
We've called
I
Florida
get it.
being good for years, and then like they're finally living up to it under Quenneville.
And that's with Barkov playing with Verhaeghe and the ghost of Anthony Duclair. There's not a whole lot of talent.
Well, they're getting contributions up and down the lineup, and yeah,
Nola Chari, he
Right.
exists.
Frank Vetrano.
Yeah, I will say I'm really excited that Lundqvist is having not Lundqvist. Hornquist. As I hold up my fist. I'm really glad that Patrick Hornqvist is having a really good year this year, because there was all this talk about, oh, he was a product of Pittsburgh, despite the fact that he was playing on like the 3rd and 4th line his last couple of years and
Yeah.
still putting up points. He's having a pretty lights out season down in Florida, and that's awesome to see. And the fact that Florida gets a new GM and then fleeces Jim Rutherford for Patrick Hornqvist and gives them the Matheson contract, which is fucking
Rough.
terrible. What a turn of events in Florida. Like, good for them. You have something on the script here, and it's just Red Wings ? And so I love the Red Wings, despite all of their numerous faults. I have for years been on the let's not fire Jeff Blashill train. And the reasons are numerous, but the big one is he's really not been given a whole lot to work with in his time.
No.
He was made the coach at the tail end of a dynasty that died. I mean, the Red Wings made the playoffs, 25 years in a row, something like that, which is unreal.
Unbelievable consistency.
And he was kind of like, hey, this thing's on fire. Catch. And so I wanted to give him a lot more grace than I would normally give a coach of the Red Wings, Dave Lewis, because he was just given a dumpster fire.
Right.
He was given Ken Holland mismanaged that roster. I know Ken Holland was given the edict to win at all costs, blah, 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 blah. Keep the streak going, blah, blah, blah. Don't care. Ken Holland made some terrible, terrible decisions. We're still living with the Franz Nielsen contract. We're going to be living with the shattered remains of the Justin Abdelkader contract for like 4 more years. There's a lot of shit to pick through there. So I was willing to give Jeff Blashill a lot of leeway and credit. I'm finally to the point where I will willfully say we need to get rid of fucking Jeff Blashill. At the end of the season, like, this is a lost season.
Yeah, no point in getting rid of a coach this season.
Yeah, this is a lost season. And honestly, the Red Wings are playing pretty well. And again, credit to Jeff Blashill for that. The reason I'm saying I'm done with Jeff Blashill is Evgeny Svechnikov.
But the other one.
Yeah, his older brother. So Evgeny Svechnikov was a first-round pick of the Red Wings and had all this promise, had a really great year in the AHL. We were going to bring him up. He was going to be the next guy. And then he blew out his knee. And everybody was like, oh, fuck, that's real bad. And he missed a year. And then last year wasn't right yet either. But this year was supposed to be like, we gave him a 1-year deal. It was like, okay, this is like a make it or break it deal. But if you give somebody a make it or break it deal, you got to give them a chance to make it. Evgeny Svechnikov, despite playing well in the AHL, despite playing really well in the NHL while he was up here, is sent back down to Grand Rapids. At a certain point, you've got Dennis Cholowski sitting down in Grand Rapids, who is killing it. He was told that he had to become an elite power play guy in Grand Rapids, and he's fucking doing that. And meanwhile, Kristen Juice is like the worst player on the Red Wings, but he gets power play minutes because doing the thing that we should be paying Dennis Cholowski to do in the NHL, because he's actually one of our prospects. It's just really frustrating. And I know Yzerman is part of that discussion, who goes up, who goes down. At a certain point, you just got to say, enough is fucking enough. It's a constant cycle of us treating Evgeny Svechnikov and other young players like shit when we're in the middle of a rebuild. And I don't care about how many minutes Franz Nielsen or Valtteri Filppula need to get the rest of the year. Kudos to them on great NHL careers. Let's play some young guys and see what we've got.
Svechnikov was drafted 19th overall in 2015.
Yeah, see, like, you're just fucking around with a guy's life. Just give him a shot. He had 4 points in 4 games, and did he make some mistakes? Yeah. You know why? Because you've never given him a shot in the NHL. Michael Rasmussen keeps getting chances on the Red Wings, and he looks okay. Just give a guy a shot. There's obviously an awesome family pedigree. Andre is incredible. Just give this dude a shot, who is also a first-round draft choice. And I'm just really tired of the Wings seemingly jerking him around.
Yeah, it's from an outside perspective, it seems really strange.
Him, Giovanni Smith, Dennis Cholowski, these guys should be on that roster, and it's infuriating that we're playing 7 defensemen and down a forward when we could just stick Evgeny Svechnikov on the third line and see what happens. And Red Wings rant. I don't talk about the Red Wings much on this podcast other than saying, well, if you haven't noticed yet, I'm a Red Wings fan. But that's my Svechnikov rap.
I think that was well put. And
fuck Jeff Blashill.
And you are disembarking the Blashill train at the nearest possible
at like
station.
The 95th station. You only get 100.
But I also think that coaches that are in his position don't last. Like, he was always going to be a transitional coach. And sometimes you keep the transitional coach longer than you want to because your team isn't quite ready yet, and because you haven't found your right coaching prospect, or you haven't landed somebody that you want. And you bet that Yzerman has plans at the coaching position.
Oh, yeah. He's got plans. He's got the Yzer plan. And we're all waiting for that next moment of the Yzer plan that says, fuck this guy.
Right. You know it's coming. So
I'm really tired of seeing, and I know other coaches do this, but Jeff Blashill is my coach, so that's why I'll grump about it. Him taking his mask down to yell at people.
Yeah, that's always stupid to
What
see.
the fuck? Do you think you can't be understood through a mask while you're yelling at Dylan Larkin, who's 6 inches away? put the fucking mask on, bud.
Yeah, that
And
part
stop yelling
of
at
sports coaches always makes me laugh.
And stop yelling at Dylan Larkin because he's a perfect child and we want him to be happy and healthy and beautiful for the rest of his life in a Red Wings jersey. Fuck Jeff Bleichel. Yeah, okay, now I'm done with my Red Wings rant.
So, speaking of happy and healthy life, we caught news this week of a Russian player who's fighting for his life, and you never know if maybe he might lose it or it might change irrevocably. But Timur Faizdudinov, captain of MHK Dynamo, took a puck to the head in relatively normal circumstances playing. He is now in the hospital and not expected to recover. It looked like such an innocent play. Guy goes in to dump the puck. He's just crossed center ice, dumping it back into the offensive zone. And Timur is at the wrong place at the wrong time. Actually, it doesn't take the puck to the face, takes the puck to kind of the back neck area underneath the helmet. At that velocity, it apparently fractured his temporal bone, and he's dealing with a cerebral hemorrhage. His carotid artery is severely damaged, and so he's like completely intubated, and his heart and lungs are not currently functioning. It's a really sad situation, and he's not expected to recover at this point. It just makes you conscious of the fragility of life and the inherent danger that any hockey player takes on.
When you see moments like this, it kind of reminds you of your own fragility every time you strap on the skates. And at the same time, there's this outpouring of sorrow and sadness for anybody who's put into a situation where they are extremely debilitated because of the sport that they love. And so, as a podcast, our best wishes go out to this guy. Hopefully some sort of recovery is in his future. It doesn't sound very good right now, but
yeah, really, pulling for him to make a recovery that isn't expected at this point. He's 19 and was just named captain at the beginning of this season. Who knows what happens from now, but, we'll continue to think of him as a fellow hockey player that has had a bad break and keep him in our thoughts.
Before we sign off, we don't want to end on such a dour note. So we're going to talk about something that's just kind of ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. This is like some financial engineering of the nth degree that we are seeing.
It's some next level weirdness.
So
that only rich people can pull off.
For real. Evander Kane and the San Jose Sharks expressed interest in court this week about voiding his contract. This is notable because he is currently in bankruptcy proceeding. And a lot of what his debts were taken on with the expectation of this contract. And so if they were to void his contract, it is actually sort of in his interest in that it affords none of his creditors any sort of redress. And he kind of just gets to get out, call it a debt written off, and move on with his life to a certain extent.
Fuck rich people.
It does seem super unfair, right? Can I do that to my car payments?
Can I attach my debt to his and just like, oh yeah, and while we're doing this, Jake's college debt is forgiven. That's my Evander Kane voice. It's probably not very accurate.
And while your college debt is a sneeze in the wind, I'm sure the suits would be like, nope, that's too much money.
Yeah, the Biden administration would be like, hell no. We can't give our children an ability to live. That's fucking preposterous.
Even though we campaigned on the ability to live. It's maybe for another podcast.
Yeah.
But
do we have a political episode coming up? We'll record that on Wednesday.
Yeah. Now the lefties complain about the Bidens.
Yeah. I don't have anything against Jill Biden.
Yeah, she seems sweet. But it's super weird seeing a player want to void their own contract. Like he's sort of almost like admitting, at this point, yeah, I'm not worth $7 million a year.
Doug Wilson, every time this conversation happens, pees a little.
He's like in court, just like trying to contain his bladder. Like,
here's the thing. I really hope that if they void this contract, it still counts against the cap. Because Evander Kane not knowing how to safeguard his money should not free the San Jose Sharks from the cap hell that they got themselves into.
But also, what a funny way to terminate this contract.
Would it be as weird or weirder than Marian Hossa getting a flesh-eating disease?
Weirder because it's less contrived.
You know what Evander Kane would do?
Also get a flesh-eating disease?
No, he'd take that personally.
But, okay, fine. You're just better at these damn games than I am.
We'll see next week.
Yeah, next week.
You're like,
up a game.
I was going to make this easy, but now I'm going to murder him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're going to get it.
What's the game? Oh, hey, Evan, what's the game? Oh, it's called Dodge This Knife. I don't like this game.
Sorry.
You can only lose once. So it's kind of like that IRA quote about Margaret Thatcher. We only need to be lucky once. You need to be lucky every time. Anyways, this is a completely ridiculous situation, and I really hope that the Sharks don't get out of their cap hell because of Evander Kane. I think we've had enough fun for a day.
I think so too.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to episode 23 of the Handsome Hockey Podcast. At some point, we'll get to 1,000, and everybody will know our names, and we'll be recognized everywhere we go, and people are like, damn, they handsome. Until then, we're going to keep telling you about our social media presence. You can find all of our episodes at handsomehockey.com. We are Handsome Hockey Podcast on Instagram, at Handsome Hockey on Twitter. As we mentioned earlier, handsomehockeypod@gmail.com. And we also have the Handsome Hockey Facebook page. You can find our podcasts at Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Overcast, and at our podcast host, Red Circle.
I could not have said that better.
I didn't breathe for like a good 35 seconds there. So
just make sure you do that just occasionally.
Yeah, I'm like a purple little baby here. As always.
So we're going to take Jake to the hospital.
Yeah, we're going to take me to the hospital in one of our cars. We'll figure it out. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. And as always, we thrive on your feedback. Get in touch with us in any of the ways that we just listed. Follow us on social media. And if you see us on any podcast service and you listen to us and you can rate, please give us a good rating. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we'd appreciate it.
And as always, stay handsome, everybody.
Restez beau tout le monde.
Bye.